Hey, this is Judge Waits bringing you probably one of my top 10 gameplays of all time. Actually, I forgot I had this, found it, and I was like, oh man, I need to use this. So this is, of course, some Black Ops 2 action playing some hardcore kill confirmed on the map Carrier. And I managed to get a nice relentless streak in here. In fact, I think I get a 49 kill streak, and you have to watch and wait to the final end to see how I actually get taken off my streak, because it's just not right. It's just not right. So make sure you stay tuned to that. But hey, don't want to talk about this gameplay at all. Instead, I wanted to kind of share something that happened in my life and some things that I'm reading and everything like that, and just kind of tell you about some things, maybe challenge you in a way. But I was actually driving home from work yesterday, and I passed this guy with a neon green beard. All right, neon green beard. And my first thought was, wow, that's kind of cool. You know, it'd be even better if it was blue. But my second thought, though, was, man, what is up with this guy? You know, that's kind of cool, but it's kind of weird, and this guy is kind of, I don't know, you know, he's probably some wacko, you know, with the green beard, neon green beard. And I kind of summed him up and kind of made a stereotype of him because of that one thing about him. And God kind of checked me on that and kind of reminded me of a passage in Scripture, and I wanted to share that passage. It's found in Luke 7:36, and if you're not a Christian, don't freak out on me. I know this is probably the weirdest thing for you, but stick with this because I think there's some cool things, and I want you to see this passage. But I'm not going to read it all, but in this passage, there's this religious leader that comes over and actually invites Jesus to come to his house. Now, he's not inviting him to socialize with him. He's really inviting him to test him out and just see, you know, if this Jesus person is real or not. Well, anyways, Jesus comes over, and the religious leader just kind of snubs the guy. There's some things that the religious leader should have done for Jesus as a guest in his house, and he just totally snubs him and totally is very offensive to Jesus. Well, anyways, during the dinner, this woman comes over, and this woman is a known prostitute, right? She comes over to the house, and she sits at Jesus' feet, starts wiping his feet, cleaning his feet, something that should have been offered to Jesus from this Pharisee, from this religious leader. But, you know, she starts doing all this, and I want to focus in on one particular verse, right? And it's verse 39, and it says this, right? When the Pharisee, who was like a religious leader or pastor, who had invited him, saw that woman, you know, sitting at his feet, he said to himself, if this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind, you know, focus in on that word, what kind of woman she is. So when this Pharisee saw this woman, he basically saw her just as a prostitute. And, you know, that kind of hit me. You know, who do we see when we see people? You know, that person, that Pharisee, probably saw this woman as everything that was wrong with his country. You know, here this Pharisee is, he's trying to get people to follow God's law, and here's this prostitute, and she's leading men astray and doing these things with men, and yeah, these men are doing these things, but he's probably like, you know, if our country didn't have these prostitutes in it, it would be a lot better. And so he probably resented her, you know, and just saw her as this prostitute. Now, Jesus, though, looks at her totally different. And when Jesus looks at her, he sees somebody that needs God's love. You know, somebody that's probably hurting, somebody that needs, you know, grace extended to them. And that's how he sees her. And, you know, that kind of challenges me. You know, how do we see people today? Do we just see that green beard and just kind of sum that entire person up by that one thing? Or are we willing to take the time and get to know people and reach out to them? I want to share another story. But before I do, if you're a teenager or if you're a young person, I want you to stop watching here and actually ask your parents to listen to the rest of this and see if it's okay to listen to the rest of this, because it's a little bit graphic, all right? But I want to share another story. You know, sometimes there are lesbians, all right? And sometimes you'll see a lesbian and she looks pretty manly, and she kind of takes on that manly persona. Well, there was a manly lesbian that came to this church, all right? And the church, you know, accepted her, welcomed her in, and she basically just stayed there for a couple years, and she went to church and everything. Everybody was very graceful towards her. Well, one time she went to this special conference, and the conference was on sexual molestation. And during this conference, and there's how I died. I got randomly team killed by that guy, and he goes on to team kill me a couple more times and gets booted. But back to this story, you know, this woman comes to this conference, and she has this epiphany where she realizes, you know, something happened to her when she was younger. In fact, when she was 8 years old, there was this kid that would always pick on her, always bully her. Well, anyways, this kid came to her one day and said, hey, you know, I'm sorry for what I've been doing. You know, why don't you come over to my house? I've got some candy, and, you know, I just want to apologize for doing all these things. So this girl, you know, she's 8 years old. She follows this older kid back, and the kid ends up gang raping her with some other older kids. Now, this woman, this girl who's 8 years old, she realizes that day that if she is a woman, that if she is feminine, it's dangerous and bad things are going to happen. So she starts dressing like a guy, starts acting like a guy because it's safer, right? And of course, she doesn't want to have anything to do with other guys, other men, because of what they've done. All right, and so she takes on and becomes this lesbian who has these manly attributes. All right, now when we see her, do we just see the butch lesbian, or do we see the person that has been horribly mistreated, who have had all these horrible things happen to her, and do we reach out to her with God's grace, with God's love? Too many Christians, we look at people, myself included, we look at people and we sum them up. We look at the atheist who is suing to take a cross down or suing to get prayer taken out of school, and we're like, man, this is what's wrong with America. These people are what's wrong with America. Or we look at the homosexuals and they're, suing to redefine marriage, and we say, no, that's God's covenant. That's God's thing that He created. You can't do that, And these people become our enemies. These people become, everything that's wrong with America. And that's how we look at them. We sum them up. We stereotype them by one particular thing instead of reaching out to them. One of the reasons that I love Jesus Christ was He was known for something. He was known as being a friend of sinners. What if the church was known as being a friend of sinners? Now, Jesus didn't, condone things that He shouldn't condone and say things were okay, but He also didn't condemn people. Read John 3:17 and you'll realize that. But hopefully this challenges you. Let me know what you think about it. But guys, as always, take care and God bless.